What is going on? And welcome to the Chris Grant podcast. I do want to warn you on this episode that a lot of it is primarily about me and my comedy journey. So if you don't want to hear about that, now's a great time not to. If you do, that's awesome. I appreciate you sticking around. And, it's not just going to be about me. It's going to be about a lot of the cool people I've met on my journey as well. Just all kinds of things. So I'm grateful for where I'm at. I think it's a good time to kind of, do this and benchmark it, talk about where I'm at up to this point. I'm about 2 years in, a little over actually, and talk about where I'm going from here, etc. And with that, I will say there's going to be a coupon code laced into this episode for our show at the Treehouse Lounge on February 21st in Nixa, Missouri. Those are $25 tickets, and included in that ticket price, though, you get access to the full dab bar. That's free. Yes, free dab bar. And also, you're going to get a free pre-roll when you walk in the door. So typically it costs $15 to get in there anyway. So you're going to, and you do get the access to the dab bar there, but you're going to get a great lineup of comics. We've got a couple people coming out of Joplin for this thing. They're going to drive all the way up here. Real funny comics, some of the best out of Joplin. And, of course, we've got the best out of Springfield. So some of the best out of Springfield. So it's a great value for everybody. We had people last time saying, hey, that would have been worth $50. Now, I think so too. But you know what? We're not going to tax you. I think 25 is appropriate for this. If we have to raise it at some point, maybe we will. But you know what? We don't have to right now. Check that out and look for that coupon code later on in the episode. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to tell you kind of what got me into stand-up comedy, how it's gone from there and where I'm going, what I want to do. Back in the day, 6th grade, I got a cassette tape from a guy on the bus. George Carlin cassette tape. And changed my life forever. Changed my way of thinking. Helped me to discern BS in society and all these people, what people were telling me and things like that, and really just opened my eyes to a lot of different things in life. And, I loved it. And I want to say this too. I'm from a town of like 2,000 people. We're in the sticks, right-wing conservative town. I think in this town of 2,000 people, we probably had, 400 churches. That's an exaggeration. There's a lot of churches in that small town, though. But anyway, so listening to George Carlin in that town was not a popular thing for a 11 or 12-year-old dude to be doing. And on top of that, that wasn't the only tape I had. Now, I'm not going to trash my parents here, but I had, I was listening to Public Enemy, Apocalypse, I think 1990 Now, or whatever it was called back in the day. Had NWA on cassette tape. I was rocking some really good stuff back then. Everybody else was listening to like George Strait and Garth Brooks and all that, I was rocking those. Oh, Diggable Planets, Black Sheep. I don't even know how, a country boy was getting into that stuff. And I just think it's funny too, because, just the juxtaposition between the fact that I was into that, always have been into that, but I could also lasso you with a rope if I wanted to. Getting a George Carlin tape was definitely something that opened my eyes and opened me up to comedy, and basically made me a fan, from then on. And so, but I never really did anything. I tried to be the class clown. I had a few bangers in high school. Did okay in college. but didn't really understand the mechanics of comedy and just kind of threw stuff at the wall. One of the most embarrassing moments in my comedy career actually happened. It was embarrassing, but boy, it really it helped me. Sometimes hurtful things can do that. So I was in a college class at OTC here in Springfield, and I had one of the teachers, basically call me out. And it was so good. I think she was an English teacher too, or something like that. But anyway, I was trying to be, funny in class, carry on that class clown nature from high school to college. And of course I was young, so at least give me some credit for that. But I was in class, shooting out some stuff, and this woman stops me dead in my tracks. And she says, "Mr. Grant, I appreciate all of your attempts to be funny in my class. However, what I would like you to do from this point forward, if you're going to speak and interrupt my class, is make sure that your jokes are well written, well thought out, and have a solid punchline, if you will." Oh my God! She had my number, she called me out, and I don't think I ever told another joke in that class. Yeah, she got me. But it was a great lesson. It was a great lesson because it's true. She was right. And gosh, I wish somebody would have told me that freshman year of high school. And then I wish somebody would have taught me how to write a joke back then, because I would have gotten my notebook all the way back then. But yeah, thank you to that random college professor who set me straight back in the day. There were a couple of those. And so I'll tell you another one. Just this was one of the bangers I remember from OTC. They weren't all bad. And this guy, he congratulated me on this joke. So let's go there too. Let's give you two options to pick from. In this class, we were doing a lesson on short-term memory. It was a psychology class. And so this dude goes through, this probably 3-minute, maybe 2-minute explanation about short-term memory. And he gets done, and I raise my hand, and I'm like, "Sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't get some of that. Could you repeat that?" And so he then goes through, the same explanation about short-term memory. And after he gets done, I raise my hand again and I say, "Sir, I didn't really get that. Could you go ahead and explain that again?" And at that moment, the whole classroom erupts in laughter, of course. And, he says, "Hats off to you, Mr. Grant. That was great. Now, can we please get on with class?" So give you two examples. One time I bombed. There's an example of me crushing it in class. But you know what? I shouldn't have done either one. I should have, maybe not taken 9 years to get a college degree. That would have been the best approach. Throughout college, after college, all that stuff, I have always been a fan of comedy. I used to go see shows at Sir Laugh-A-Lot at inside of Sir Gregory's on South Campbell. I think now it's a real estate place, so you wouldn't even recognize it. But we had a really good comedy scene back in the late 90s in Springfield, Missouri. Oh, gosh, excuse me. That was terrible. We had the Funny Bone also in North Springfield. I believe it was attached to a hotel, kind of a venue inside a hotel. So that was cool. And I used to go to see some of those shows, still didn't really understand like the mechanics of jokes and things like that. And at the time, there wasn't as much information out there, I don't think, for people who wanted to be comics. I think there was a lot of mentoring. I think there was a lot of different things going on as far as how people would learn how to be stand-up comics, road comics, and all that. So I wonder, there's probably a culture out there of comics too, just like DJs, that complain a lot and probably talk about how there's too many comics. There, access to the secrets and access to joke writing and all that is too prevalent. It's too easy to learn how to be a comic. It's too easy to learn how to write a joke. You know, I bet that camp exists out there. And, you know, I'm not going to argue. You know, I'm certainly grateful for the access to the information I've had. I could see how it would, you know, somebody who's really had to learn through nuance and you know, in the trenches and through being a road comic and all that. I certainly appreciate the struggle and the pioneers because, you know, I know how hard that would have been. But I also know that once you know, got it, once you latched on, it probably made things easier because, you know, it was so hard. So the people who really understand how to do comedy and how to do, you know, shows and be on the road and stuff actually probably benefited from the difficulties that becoming a stand-up, you know, offered at the time. So anyway, I would go and I did attempt to kind of write jokes and all that stuff, and they were terrible at the time. Rightfully so. I don't think anybody writes great jokes when they first start. So yeah, but I had the interest, you know, I loved it and had the interest. And so later on, that interest, that love continued when the Blue Room opened. I used to work with Chris Rochelle. We used to call him Roach, Chris Roach. I used to work with him at an entertainment company, and we would, you know, we would do some events together and stuff like that. And he was an entertaining guy. He was a really entertaining guy. He was good at getting people on the dance floor at weddings. He was good at getting people together, period. And I think he, you know, took that, obviously took that to the next level at the Blue Room. And, you know, what a great success story. Really, if you look at it from where it started to where it is now, what a success story. And, you know, I know that there has been some stuff happen or whatever. Businesses face challenges, you know, all the time. You know what? But if there hadn't been that hustle, there hadn't been that drive, there hadn't been that passion in the beginning, there would be no issues now because we wouldn't have the Blue Room. Okay? It never would have existed. So we have to realize that even though there are issues, have been issues, whatever, it's still a beautiful thing. Okay? And we need to focus on that. So, it was just amazing, you know, to see the way that came about and the way they used that room, to their advantage. There used to be a stage that they would use on the opposite side of the room, and you know, it was a big stage. And the reason they got rid of that stage actually later on, or the reason they stopped using it as a stage, was to fit more people. They got so many people, you know, in through the doors, they had to figure out how to put more seats in there. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, the stage used to be on the south wall in that room, and then it went to the west wall in that room. So what I saw was a DIY project being started and moving on, you know, moving up as they went, evolving as they went. You know, you would see little improvements here or there, and it was really cool to see. And I will say too, they focused a lot on detail. You know, they made it really, really cool. I remember the table toppers, seeing those when they first came in. You know, the logo on the table toppers, the logo on the wall. You know, the little candles on the tables and all that. I mean, they really dressed it up nice. They really focused on the experience when you got there. They really they made you feel special when you got seated. I remember those experiences, and I remember, also being proud to take a date there, and things like that. Because again, they made you feel like $1 million when you walked through the door. They sat you at the table. They just did so many things, and it was cool. And also to see the group of comics back in the day that supported, standing up against the wall, the group of open micers that would show up to the shows all the time. Let me see if I can drop some names here. Back in those days, of course, Kenny DeForest was there all the time. Harrison Broadstreet was just a baby. He probably had to do comedy with a fake ID back then. Katie Still, same thing with her. Corbin LeMaster, I think he was running around in the scene at that time. Josh Wingo, Carter Fancook, early day people. There was a guy named Bryce. Don't remember your name right offhand, or last name right offhand, but I do remember him being a big part of the scene back then. But again, it was just a cool vibe, and I don't want people to forget that. I don't, because this place, we can create. People have created really cool things in this place. So if you're sitting on a dream, don't think you can't do it, because I've witnessed it firsthand. The Blue Room started from the ground up. Watching the Blue Room take shape the way it did, watching the level of talent increase as it did over time was very cool. Watching them fill up a room, and take bigger swings, take bigger chances on talent was awesome. Watching, I'm going to pick on him for a minute, watching Dusty Slay build his act in that room, or build part of his act. I'm not going to say he did the whole thing, because that would be ridiculous. But watching him craft some of his act in that room was huge to me. So huge. So that was when I really, became a huge comedy nerd. And I want to say that was around 2016, 17, so I didn't really hit my first open mic and really start trying comedy till, maybe 2022, maybe late 21. But, so it still took me quite a while to really even try. Now I want to talk about Dusty Slay and the influence that his comedy had on me, and watching him, kind of develop his act at the Blue Room. It was just it was an incredible experience, and I loved his stuff right from the jump. I did not grow up in a trailer park, but I could still really relate to a lot of the things he was talking about. So I latched on in the beginning, and what was cool about my experience watching Dusty was I got to see him, when he didn't even have long hair yet. Okay. So I got to see Dusty Slay, the person, develop into Dusty Slay, the character. But I got to see his hair grow over time. When he'd come back to the Blue Room, his hair would be longer. And then the trucker hats, And my favorite joke from that era, I think, that really, I don't know, it really kind of defined where he was going, what he was doing, was, the trucker hat joke, where it's like, when I put this hat on, people think I've got a great rock collection. When I take this hat off, everybody knows I got a great rock collection, or something like that. I'm botching your joke totally. It's your joke. You can't, definitely can't accuse me of stealing it. But hey, you know what? That being said, go find that joke. He's got Netflix specials. He's got all kinds of stuff. Find out how Dusty did it. Go binge Dusty Slay content for the rest of your life. That would be awesome. It'll be a good time. But yeah, so cool to see him evolve and become the Dusty Slay that he is today. Gosh, what a great example. This guy's done everything. They've painted pictures of him on walls in Nashville. So what that experience, I think, did for me was it showed me that joke writing is definitely a process. I got to see Dusty deliver the same joke to different crowds in different ways, and it clued me in, to the scientific process of joke writing. It's a science. You hypothesize that this joke is going to work. You write it down to the best of your ability. You take it into the lab, which is an open mic setting. You see what kind of laughs you get out of it. You watch your own videos back through to see what you could have done better, how you think you could have done it better. If you get the laughs you wanted and it works, you keep it and you use it for future sets. If it doesn't, you go back and you fix it and put it, through some lab testing again, or maybe you shelve it and wait until you find more data so that you can pull that joke off the shelf and work on it again. And sometimes that, the more data that you find just comes, with your talent as a comedian. That more data could mean, I'm going to go back to this joke when I'm funnier, when I understand comedy a little more. And so, but his process clued me into that to a higher degree. And I think AJ Finney during that time, which I've got another podcast episode we did with AJ Finney back in those days on my podcast playlist. So check that out. Very good information in that. AJ Finney is a great comedian, done a lot of cool things, even up to that point and since then. But he really clued me in. I noticed these nuances. He went to an open mic one time at the Blue Room open mic back then with his notebook in hand. He had told me the jokes he was trying before the open mic, run them past me, and kind of given me a hint on some of the mechanics of the joke, why he thought they were funny, or jokes, why he thought they were funny. And then he proceeded to go into the mic. He got up when it was his turn. He told the jokes. He made little, notes on his notepad as he was telling the jokes, little check marks like, hey, that worked. Hey, that didn't. Maybe it was at a time when we weren't really recording our sets with cell phones as much. I didn't even really think about that until just now. But he did that. He got the laughs. He got off stage and he was gone. He rocked his set and he bounced. And it was the most business approach I think I'd ever seen to an open mic to this day. He got up there, he did his work, found out what he needed to know and bounced. So that was a real good clue as far as what this thing really is. It's science. Later on, I had the opportunity to interview the late Kenny DeForest. May you rest in peace. Kenny was probably the nicest comic that I met in the Springfield scene. Now, Kenny, when I met Kenny, he was long past the Springfield scene. Of course, he'd moved up to Chicago and then moved up to New York, chasing the comedy dragon, so to speak. And he did really, really well for himself. Such a shame that we lost Kenny. What an asset to our scene. But his memory's still carried on today by so many comics that were around at that time. I mentioned Harrison Broadstreet. Harrison's got a tattoo on his arm, that references Kenny. So he's still there. Kenny's still there and will always be in our Springfield scene in spirit. And we're not going to let him be forgotten. So, that being said, I got to interview him, and I will probably add that interview to this podcast playlist just so people can find it easier. But it is on my channel at this point. And so on the air only about, I want to say, I was on a radio station at the time, and I want to say only maybe 3 to 5 minutes of the interview actually aired, but I recorded about 15, because I wanted to make sure, first of all, I had so much respect for Kenny at that time to begin with. And I wanted to make sure that the final product was outstanding. So if you get 15 minutes of content, I could really, edit that down to 5 minutes of great content. And comedians know what I'm talking about. It takes a lot of great content, or a lot of content to really, get a tight 5. So, that was one of the goals. And, another goal and another great thing that happened with that was I got to really, have an in-depth conversation with a comedian I was a fan of about comedy. So I got 15 minutes of free content and deep content from somebody who I respected, who was really, really good at their craft. After that interview, I think it motivated me a little bit more. And as I think back to that, the interview happened around November because that's when Kenny would come back and do sets at the Blue Room. So it makes sense because I then on the radio announced on air, I needed content for a New Year's Day show. I announced on air that my New Year's resolution was to not only get up at an open mic night, but to develop a tight 5. That was my New Year's resolution. By the end of that year, I wanted to have a complete tight 5 for comedy. And I did not accomplish that goal that year. Did not do it. But, and that's why I never make promises and resolutions or anything like that. I try not to in public and put stuff out there because, for whatever reason, sometimes they just don't work out. So, didn't make it happen that year, but I have made it happen since, obviously. And that was, that interview, I think, really made me decide, hey, this is something I want back on my radar, and this is something that I'm going to choose to make important to me at this point, because I've been on a lot of journeys, okay? And they're all the same. They're all similar, as to how you progress and how you evolve in something. So I've been on a weight loss journey. I've been on a DJ journey, been on a comedy journey, and I think with some of these, self-help just kind of plays into that. You've got to become a better person if you want to succeed in these industries. You just do. You can't just be a good comic without being able to talk to, managers and decision makers and people at a higher level, unless you've got an agent or whatever. But you've got to be able to get along with people, to make it anywhere. Now, that being said, you can't get along with everybody. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've gotten along with everybody, because that would be a lie. That's untrue. But you do have to be conscious of it, and you do have to try your absolute best. And I do believe that I've done that. So, and I'm getting better. You learn how to turn a negative into a positive, which can be really difficult. But I think it can be done. So we'll see. How about that? Instead of telling you what I'm going to do in this podcast, I'm going to do it, and then we're going to see if it works, and then we'll call back to this and talk about it. Around the time I made the claim that I wanted to get a type 5, I was also in a cover band locally, a cover group. I was the DJ in a Beastie Boys tribute band. I was a turntablist, so that's the only way I would have done it. I would never have just pushed play on these tracks. So I did add some art to this project, okay? And I felt like that was needed, because otherwise it was just going to come off as a bunch of grown men doing karaoke. So I didn't want to really do that. So anyway, I was part of this group, and things didn't work out with the group. I was unfortunately let go from a Beastie Boys tribute act. So I decided, off of that, I had some time, and I really wanted to invest my time and energy into art, into real art. Now, turntablism is art. I do believe that. I do believe taking, different pieces of media and blending them together, or, sampling things and making new things out of them, scratching, etc. There are certain forms of DJing that is definitely art. So I'm not going to take away from that, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. So I decided with this free time, I would go ahead and pursue this. And I did. So I went to a few open mics, and, I, just like a lot of comics, I mean, every comic that comes on the scene, I wasn't great. Now, that being said, I've seen some great comics. I've seen some people have some great first sets. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there can't be some great comics. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that some people don't get funnier faster than others, because they certainly do. But what I will tell you, and anybody from the ground level who just did a mic all the way up to Jerry Seinfeld, George Carlin, Dave Chappelle, anybody's going to tell you that nobody can avoid the suck of comedy. Nobody can avoid a bad set. Nobody can, I don't think, avoid pure humiliation at some point. But nobody can avoid nobody can avoid those things making you better as a comedian if you use them to your advantage and positively. And that's difficult. But I think, what I'm saying is these things come to everybody. So if you're thinking about coming to a mic, if you're wanting to be a stand-up, you want to try it, just know that anybody who's up there, anybody who's trying it, has either gone through these things or will go through these things. I'll give you a great example. There was a guy who, in our scene, who came up one night at a mic, and it was his first time. And it did not seem like it was his first time. He had a very well-crafted, well-written set. A tight five. It was great. I mean, he really did a good job. And it showed because the crowd was about it. I mean, they laughed hysterically throughout his whole set. First time. And, of course, everybody's treating him great after the show. It's like, is this the new thing? Is this the new comedy messiah of Springfield? Is this, oh my gosh, we found him. And, cut to 2 months later, and this guy, is sitting out on the patio with the rest of us talking about, how, he's bombed and it sucks and he hates it. And, we just laughed because it's a part of comedy. And what sucks for him, but it's kind of cool because he'll get there. But he set the bar high for himself, right? The dragon that he's chasing is a monster. So, good luck to you, man. And you've done well since, and it's great because now you know what you're capable of, and now you get to continue to write and get yourself to that level. And eventually, if you keep doing it, you'll be able to have a set like that anytime you want to, in any city you want to in the United States. So that's the benefit if you keep at it, And I'm gonna talk about a situation that's happened with me recently, and I'm not gonna get into a lot of detail about it because I don't have to. But I will say that some people recently came and heckled me on purpose. They tried to ruin a show, and I think they did a really good job of it, honestly. But out of that experience, right? I've dealt with hecklers. I've dealt with hecklers for 2 years, and but out of that experience, what I gathered, see, these aren't regular hecklers. Most hecklers are ignorant, and they come into a comedy show and they say dumb stuff because they don't know any better. They just want it to be about them, and they're easy, right? Most of them are easy to shut down. You could say one or two things and it's just whatever. It's fun and funny. Hecklers are a part of comedy. But when a heckler comes in with the express reason to mess up somebody's show, and not only that, but these hecklers absolutely know comedy because they've worked at a comedy venue, worked very closely with it, or worked in entertainment, whatever. When these people come in to, mess up your gig, destroy your gig, it's a totally different thing. Okay? And I recently learned this. So, you got to shut them down. I mean, and I did. I shut them down. The point from all that is you get these challenges, right? And I'm grateful for that experience. Now, I will say this. I don't want more people like them at my shows, okay? I will say you're going to have to pay. You want to come heckle me, come pay. But I'm not inviting hecklers to my show. That's not the kind of stuff I do. And I had a good 100+ open mics, under my belt before any of that crap happened at the same venue. But what I will say is I'm grateful for that experience, because what it's taught me is, if I can have these people come and purposely try to sabotage my show and I can shut them down, then that means these other fools don't have a chance. And on top of that, it's motivated me to do some other good things in the community, right? Instead of jumping in the negativity, I'm really, really trying to jump into the positivity and see if we can just, spin something cool out of this thing versus being negative, because Springfield's notorious for that, right? Somebody gets into a fight with somebody, they get a resentment, a bunch of their friends team up against the other person who has a resentment, and we just create these little groups of like 12 people that don't even matter, that go against each other, and at the end of the day, we lose what we love out of it, right? It's stupid. We're not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. A lot of dumb things have happened to me while on stage during comedy, and that's part of the fun. That's part of the journey. I've got a lot of fun stories to tell, and so we'll just chalk this up to another one. I think that's the perfect segue for me to drop this coupon code for our upcoming Treehouse Lounge show in Nixa, Missouri. That's happening on February 21st, and I'm giving you $5 off your ticket price right now. Tickets are $25. You get $5 off, making your ticket $20. That means you still get access to the full dab bar. You still get that free pre-roll when you walk through the door. That's only $20 to you. Use this coupon code. The coupon code is high five. Yeah, I'm gonna give you a high five. $5 off. Enjoy that dab bar, enjoy that pre-roll, and enjoy some awesome comedy. I want to talk about like the early days and some things that people can new comics, if you're just getting into stand-up, some things you can watch out for, some things that maybe I can just help you with. We talked about you're already going to suck, so we know that. Keep going to mics. And something I think that's real important to add too is that a lot of these people don't have your best interest in mind, okay? And even I'll go a little bit further and say that some of these people don't want you to be a stand-up comic. And I've not only suspected this from people before, but I've also now heard it from the horse's mouth. So I want to address this too. If you go to an open mic, there are some games that these people might play with you. And one of those games is they want to try to throw you off their path. Okay. So I was going to this open mic, throw you off the path. I was going to an open mic a lot, and especially early on. Now, these guys, I didn't realize the connection they had with some other people, whatever, in the city. They didn't really bring that to the table necessarily. They stayed pretty low key about it, but there were certain things that happened that definitely kind of clued me in. But anyway, I noticed one thing, and this is why I want new comics to really pay attention, because every time I would pop the audience at this open mic, and I mean, like, sometimes, some nights I would have one of the best jokes of the night, if not the best joke of the night, and really pop that crowd and just have them laughing hysterically. And every time I would do that early on, this one specific comic would come up to me, and he would tell me why there was something wrong with that joke. Now, this comic, I don't think to this day has ever, even though I make people laugh, even though I tell jokes, all that stuff, and can work a room, he's never ever come up to me about a joke and told me what I've done right. Never. So I want you to realize, and I want you to pay attention to things like this, guys. The audience is what matters. Okay? That's why you record your sets. When you go home and you watch those videos, and you see, when a veteran comic, somebody who's been doing it for a long time, tells you you suck, okay, or your joke wasn't funny, or it was bad for some reason or whatever, and you go watch your video and you hear the whole room laughing, who are you going to pay attention to? Who should you pay attention to? Yeah? Do you want to pay attention to the testimony from this guy? The weighted, biased testimony from this guy? Or do you want to pay attention to the absolute truth, from this behavior, these people? Laughter is you can keep yourself from laughing, but at certain points you can't. Okay? So laughter is a natural thing that just happens when something's funny. So the answer, guys, take the evidence over the testimony. Okay? Don't listen to these guys. If they tell you you're not funny, they're shooting smoke up your ass is what's happening. So later on, what's funny is I was talking to another guy from the same scene. He runs in the same circle. Like, that's what's funny too, is even within a small comedy scene like Springfield, there's like little factions of the scene, little groups that people start for whatever reason. It's like I said, real funny. It's almost like a lunchroom at a high school. When you walk in there, you can't sit with these people. You can with these, blah, blah, blah. So, but maybe we'll talk about that later. But anyway, this guy later did confirm that they do that. He didn't say they did it to me, but he did say that it happens. He was talking about how he was doing it to other comics. Now, he didn't know he didn't really understand or think about the experience I'd had, but put those two things together and you have, essentially people trying to filter up and coming comics out of the scene. And these people don't know any better. Maybe they could kill a dream if they wanted to. So don't let these people kill your dreams. And I'm going to say this too, on this same note, that I actually had a comic tell me the other day that he was very appreciative because he went to this same mic one time, and he was very appreciative that myself and another comic pulled him to the side and told him to keep going because he had a bad set there. I think one of these people did say something about his set, and he left very discouraged. And I don't even remember how I talked to him, if he came up and talked to me. Actually, I think I think he saw me later at an out of town mic, now that I remember, and he asked me how I was able to bomb so gracefully, how I was able to handle it, because it really messed with him, and he told me that he was actually potentially going to quit comedy. Had maybe he not had those two people reach out or talk to him about his experience. So these things can really, change somebody's life path. Don't let these haters change your life path, is what I'm saying. Now, this comic that I'm talking about, he's gone and done some incredible things, and he's one of the funniest people in our scene. And what's funny is he doesn't show up to a lot of these mics because he's too busy doing shows now. So, does that illustrate my point? I think it does. If you wind up having bad experiences in your local open mic scene, that's going to be common for you. And I'll tell you, the people who have the worst experiences in open mic scenes are going to be the people who come in and are not funny whatsoever, that don't contribute anything, that don't do anything, that take away from the comedy scene locally. And the other people are going to be the really funny people, right? And the reason for that is because they disrupt the scene too. They challenge funny comedians. They challenge other funny comedians. Other funny comedians get insecure because of their presence. There's all kinds of different things that can happen in that way. So you may have a bad time if you're a good comic. You know how you can tell? Again, check your camera, go back and look at the laughs. If the laughs are there, you're a funny comic. Another way you can test your material is by taking it on the road to a completely different audience, and I highly recommend you doing this no matter what. But I highly recommend you doing this, especially if you're burnt out in your own scene, if you're questioning your own abilities, somebody's made you feel bad about your material, whatever. Take your show on the road. The reason to do this is real simple, and again, we're talking about science here. So you need to isolate variables. And in this case, the variable is your audience. When you're performing in front of a bunch of stand-up comics, it's a lot different than performing in front of just a raw audience. And I'll add one layer to that. When you're performing in front of a bunch of stand-up comics who know you, it makes it that much harder. If you've hung out with these people personally, behind the scenes, maybe, people have said things about you behind the scenes, there are filters at play. So you're not going to get the response that you really need. Out of town, if you show up at an open mic and you keep it low key, now that's a big thing. Show up at a mic as a complete newbie and don't tell them anything about you. Okay? If you tell them who you are, if you tell them you're a comic, if you tell them anything like that, it's not going to work. You're not going to get the result because you already blew up your own spot. So don't do that. Go in there, act like just a fresh comic off the streets, be polite, sign up, sit in the corner with your notebook and, really hash out your set because you need to do a good job. After you do that, get up and see what you got. Make sure you film it. And then take it afterwards and either laugh or cry. That's going to give you the best measure of how your comedy is really doing. And if you want to take that a step further, do it in another city. Go down to Fayetteville, then go back up to St. Louis. Go to Kansas City, and then hit somewhere in Oklahoma. Hit Joplin. Field test this in different markets to see if your comedy is funny or not. I'm going to preface this next topic by saying that I'm not trying to act like some comedy god. If I was some comedy god, I wouldn't be doing this podcast. I wouldn't be doing open mics like the ones I'm talking about. I'd be on and doing some other stuff. So I want you to know that I'm not saying I'm any more special than anybody else. All I'm going to tell you is I've had some experience. I've gone through some things. I've made crowds laugh undeniably, and I've got 2+ years in the game. So, and I've got a career as a DJ in entertainment before that. So that's what I'm coming to you with. That's my baseline. So, I'm not trying to say I'm any better than most people. Some people in the comedy scene, yes, I'll admit that too. And I'd be wrong to not admit that. Let's keep going. Something else I've learned on this journey too is that it's very much like a weight loss or weight lifting journey. I lost a bunch of weight, then I got really fit there for a while, and it's an interesting journey because they happen very similarly. When you're trying to sculpt muscle or gain weight, do things like that, you're going to work really, really hard for a while, and then you're just going to plateau. And you'll hear that constantly in the weightlifting community, plateauing, but you do. And I think that happens in comedy, and I think it's necessary in everything we try to get good at. Because if we just kept growing, we wouldn't have time to kind of fit in and work ourselves into who we've become. Okay? We need time to evolve into who we are. So, in comedy, you write jokes, or I'm sorry, well, maybe in the beginning for me, write jokes. Could have been like that. But if you're a good comic, you're funny. You're writing jokes, right? You're climbing the mountain, you're doing well, and then all of a sudden you just writer's block and you plateau. But then what I've noticed is after that plateau, you'll something will happen. You'll just find more jokes. You'll keep writing and you'll become a better comic. And that's what's happened for me throughout this whole thing. And so I just want to say to new comics, you've got something to look forward to. You're going to get better if you keep writing. That's how it works. Keep writing, keep testing, keep working on your craft. Eventually you're going to get rid of and be able to shed the bad things about your act. You're going to realize, because you're a fan of comedy, you're going to be able to call yourself on your own crap and realize, oh, it's not that funny. It's not that funny. You're going to become a better comic because you're going to realize so many people are funnier than you. When you make a comment that you think is hilarious and they instantly tag it, out of the air and pull something out that was so much better than your original thought. Get ready. That being said, it's going to sharpen you up so much better. It's like having a tough older brother at home that gives you a hard time and beats on you, but then you go to school around kids your age and you're the man. Just how it works. So embrace that kind of stuff. Embrace the suck. Embrace the process. If you're, growing and plateauing, I think you're doing it right. I think I've covered a lot of stuff this time. I've got a lot more to talk about. Like, subscribe, share if you want to check out other episodes. But I think that's some decent knowledge for some newer comics to grab onto without just making it a huge lecture and going through everything. Maybe I'll save that for another time. And there's certainly no shortage of YouTube channels out there that do specifically that. So, if you've got any ideas for future podcasts, I'd love to hear them. I've got a couple of guests already booked for future episodes, so I'm looking forward to those. Some really, really talented folks with some really interesting backgrounds in comedy and entertainment. So I'm not going to tell you who they are, but if you like, subscribe, and share, hit those notification buttons, or hit that notification button. You'll know as soon as those next episodes drop. While I've got you, make sure to check out our event on the heavyheadsrecords.com website. Use that coupon code HIGH5 for $5 off your ticket at the Treehouse Lounge Show. Buy a record, CD, cassette tape, VHS tape, Laserdisc, whatever you're into off the website while you're there. Check out my other episodes, and I will catch you next time.